Imagine you're 70 years old. You're standing in your garden early in the morning. The air is quiet. The sun is warm on your shoulders. For the first time in decades, your calendar is empty. No alarm clocks, no deadlines, no meetings, just peace. The kind of peace you spent 40 years working for. But then a letter arrives in the mailbox. You open it slowly, and suddenly, that peaceful morning doesn't feel so peaceful anymore. Because the letter says the government wants a piece of the life you thought you had already paid for. This might sound like a rare situation, but for millions of Americans, it's the reality waiting at the end of their working life. Most people spend decades running a race they barely understand. We're told a very simple story growing up: work hard, save money, put it in your retirement account, and one day, everything will work out. So we follow the plan. Every paycheck, a little bit goes into a retirement account. Every year, the balance grows. And slowly, we start to believe something comforting. We believe the hardest part is simply saving enough. But hidden behind that belief is a quiet truth most people never discover until it's too late. Saving money is only half the game. The other half is understanding how the system will treat that money when you finally need it. And that system is far more complicated than most people realize. Let's look at two people, Bob and Mark. On paper, their lives look almost identical. Both spent decades building careers. Both worked hard. Both earned around $100,000 a year. Both did everything they were told to do. But there is one small difference between them. Mark is 50 years old. Bob is 70. Mark is still working. Bob is retired. Every 2 weeks, Mark receives his paycheck. He opens the statement and sees numbers that most workers are familiar with: federal income tax, Social Security, Medicare, state taxes, something called FICA. Piece by piece, a large portion of his earnings disappears before he even touches the money. By the end of the year, Mark has handed over more than $15,000 to the government. Not because he made a mistake, not because he invested badly, simply because he is working. Now look at Bob. Bob is 70 years old. He is retired, and he is living on the exact same amount of money Mark earns, $100,000 a year. But Bob's tax bill isn't $15,000. It's around $290. That's not a typo. $290, a difference of nearly 50 times. So how can two people earning the same amount of money face such dramatically different tax bills? The answer is surprisingly simple. The financial system isn't a single set of rules. It's more like a house with many different doors. When you are working, you are pushed through the front door, and that door has the highest toll. You pay income tax. You pay payroll tax. You pay Social Security tax. You pay Medicare tax. But once you stop receiving a paycheck, the rules change. FICA taxes disappear. Certain deductions grow larger. For many retired couples, nearly $50,000 of income can be shielded before taxes even begin. Suddenly, the system starts treating the exact same amount of money very differently. And this is where most people unknowingly lose the race. Not because they didn't work hard, not because they didn't save, but because they were taught to save in only one place. For millions of workers, the default retirement plan is the traditional 401k. It's simple. It's automatic. Your employer offers it. Your HR department encourages it. Every paycheck, money quietly flows into that account. And for decades, it feels like the perfect solution. Your taxes go down today. Your retirement balance grows tomorrow. But there is one detail that almost nobody talks about. When you put money into a traditional 401k, you are making a deal with the future. You are agreeing to pay taxes later, but no one tells you what those taxes will be. Imagine putting your money into an apartment building where the landlord can change the rent whenever they want. That is essentially what a traditional retirement account can become. Because one day, the government will decide how much of that money you must withdraw. At age 73, something called required minimum distributions begin. And at that moment, the IRS stops asking politely. They start telling you exactly how much money must come out of your account each year. Whether you need the money or not, whether markets are down or not, whether you plan for it or not, every dollar is taxed as ordinary income. And those withdrawals can trigger other consequences most retirees never expect. Your Medicare premiums can increase. Your Social Security benefits can become taxable. A chain reaction begins, not because you did anything wrong, but because you didn't have options. And that is the real tragedy of retirement planning. Problem isn't that people fail to save. The problem is that people save in ways that limit their freedom. Because real wealth isn't just about how much money you have. It's about how many choices you still have. Financial freedom isn't a number. It's flexibility. It's the ability to decide where your income comes from and when. That's why many experienced investors think in terms of 3 different buckets. The first bucket is tax-deferred money. This includes traditional retirement accounts like the 401k. The second bucket is tax-free growth. Accounts like Roth IRAs allow your investments to grow without future taxes if used correctly. And the third bucket is taxable investments. Regular brokerage accounts that allow you to manage gains strategically. With the right strategy, some long-term investments can even be sold with 0% capital gains tax. This balance creates something incredibly powerful. Choice. Imagine someone named Jane. Jane decides one morning that she wants to take her husband on a trip to Europe. They withdraw $20,000 from their investments. But because the money comes from long-term gains within a favorable tax bracket, they pay $0 in federal capital gains tax. Not because they were lucky, but because they planned. Because they built flexibility into their financial life. And this is where the entire conversation about retirement changes. For decades, we've been obsessed with one question. How much money do I need? 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. But numbers can be fragile. Markets fluctuate. Inflation changes. Rules evolve. Strategies, however, are resilient. A flexible financial strategy can adapt when the world changes. And the world always changes. So the real goal isn't just building a large pile of money. The real goal is building a system that protects your freedom. Because one day you will wake up to that quiet morning. Maybe you'll be 70, maybe older. You'll step outside. The garden will be still. The sun will rise slowly. And you'll realize something powerful. You are finally free from the clock. But the real question isn't whether you saved enough money. The real question is whether you built enough freedom into your plan. Tonight, take a few minutes and look at your accounts. Ask yourself one simple question. If the rules change tomorrow, would I be trapped or would I be free? Most people never ask that question until it's too late. But if you're hearing this right now, you still have time. And if you want to understand the financial rules that quietly shape our lives, the ones most people only discover decades later, then this channel is for you. Because the goal here isn't just to make money. It's to understand how money actually works. And if you want to stay ahead of the system instead of reacting to it, consider subscribing. Because the next video might save you years of mistakes. And sometimes, that's worth far more than money.